This segment sponsored by Alzheimer's Association.
Welcome back. So November is Alzheimer's Awareness Month, and we know every case is different, and all month long we've been hearing from people directly affected by this disease.
Today, Mary Jones is with us. She's a care partner to her husband who has early stage young onset Alzheimer's. Yolanda is also here with us today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. This
Very
is an
important conversation.
topic to touch on, for sure.
Let's talk about your journey a little bit with Alzheimer's and your husband, and when was he diagnosed?
Yes, my husband was diagnosed January of this year, actually. It was a long journey trying to get to that diagnosis. We started noticing symptoms probably 3 or 4 years before that.
Okay.
And the first symptoms that we saw that, honestly, I didn't realize that visual problems are related to Alzheimer's.
Oh, interesting.
Gotcha.
Specifically what?
Yeah, he would have things right in front of him and he wouldn't see them. He would ask me, where is such and such? And I'd say, well, it's right there. And he didn't see it. I had to point it out to him. He had difficulty with visual spatial relationships. He was always the go-to guy for packing for vacations and things like that. And I started to notice that he really didn't know where to put things so that it all made sense.
Right.
He also had some issues with just being slow, everything, like the way I'm talking right now.
Gotcha.
He spoke slower, he walked slower, he ate slower, and he thought much slower.
Wow.
He had difficulty with processing information, with knowing what the next step was to do, with something as easy as making coffee or tuna fish, you know, to make tuna fish salad. You know, so I think those were the major things that we noticed at first. Yeah.
So,
and finances. He would become very frustrated with finances.
Did you think it was something else, or you just had no idea?
Well, I know quite a bit about dementia, so I was kind of thinking that, but I didn't want that to be what it was.
Right.
Gotcha.
And Yolanda, are these typical signs and symptoms? Obviously every case is different, but do we see these types of signs frequently?
Yes, they are quite common to see a lot of these, but it is interesting and a little frustrating sometimes when you hear different cases and you're hearing different things that maybe somebody else had not experienced. And of course you're always wondering, is it really Alzheimer's or some type of dementia, because it can look so different.
Right. Yeah.
But they do follow certain common things, as what Mary's talking about.
Mary, going back to your journey, obviously this must have had effect on your employment and just your way of life and quality of life.
Yes, absolutely. Probably the most major change was that my husband could no longer work. We were very fortunate, though, because his employers were just extremely patient with him. They really allowed him to be tested for a number of different things. You know, was it his vision? Was it his hearing? Was it sleep apnea? Was it depression? So he was tested for all of those things, all of us hoping that that was the explanation as for why he could no longer do his job. All those tests were done, and yeah, I had problems in all those areas, but that was not the explanation. Eventually, he got to the point where he couldn't do the simplest things at work, things that he had done for 10 years. You know, not the more complex processes at work, but the really simple things. He didn't know the next step to take. And at the end of December last year, he lost his job. And that was major. You know, he's worked since he was 16 years old.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. So then we had to apply for Social Security disability and that whole process, which is a nightmare.
Right.
Yeah.
So how have you adjusted since then? Obviously, you're helping to care for him. How has that affected you in your employment situation?
It makes working very difficult, because when I go to work in the morning and then I'm working throughout the day in kind of a stressful job, at the same time I'm wondering how he's doing at home.
Yes.
Yeah, you know, initially, you know, I really tried to keep him busy. I have a whiteboard at home that acclimates him to what's the day, what's the date, what are the things that maybe that he could do, and kind of also to let him know what I was doing. So I worry about him and how things are going for him, whether he's staying active. He can't drive anymore.
Wow.
We sold his car a couple of months ago. That was huge, as you can well imagine.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm now the driver.
Yeah.
I much prefer that he be the driver, but I'm the driver now. You know, I manage the finances. If we need any repairs done in our house, I'm the one that calls, makes the arrangements, and then in order to avoid embarrassment for Bill, my husband, I try to let the contractor know that my husband has a diagnosis of Alzheimer's. He cannot make the decision, you know, that I'm the one, so you're gonna have to call me. And, you know, it's, when I'm able to do that, I can avoid some embarrassing situations for him. But if I'm not able to, then it can become very embarrassing, you know, when the contractor is looking just at him and they're kind of ignoring me, you know, and I kind of have to interject, and it's embarrassing.
Well, Mary, you're so
luckily,
strong. Yes.
There's a lot of support out there. The Alzheimer's Association is
Yes.
very helpful.
You guys
Talk
do
to us
so
about
much.
the support that you've received.
Amazing, amazing. I feel very blessed that I knew to call Yolanda. Yolanda really has helped me to get connected in so many different ways. And I would say that the theme is connections.
Yeah.
They, you know, Yolanda sat down with Bill and I when after I called her, made an appointment with us, and she talked to us probably for an hour, and then gave us suggestions of different resources that we could access to help us. You know, they just have an abundance of resources to suggest. The major thing, though, I have to say, is the early stage support group.
Yeah, support is everything.
Ah.
Support is everything. Thank you
Yes.
guys so much. Thank you, Mary, for sharing your story. Yolanda, thank you for the amazing work that you do. If our viewers want to find out more information, where can they go?
They can go to alz.org, or they can call our helpline at 1-800-272-3900.
Thank you, ladies,
Thank you
for
so
joining
much.
us.
Thank you.
We'll be right back, guys.